I would like to announce that a quorum is present, the meeting is duly called, and a notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is 7 p.m. The following board members are in attendance: Catherine Sells, Dr. Buddy Bonner, Allison Lasson, Jenny Prosnick, Dr. Stacy Barker, Michelle Akatab, and Dr. Sheila Taylor. I've asked board member Stacy Barker to lead us in prayer.
Please pray with me if you so choose. O God, by whom the meek are guided in judgment, and light rises up in darkness for the godly, grant us in all our doubts and uncertainties the grace to ask what you would have us to do, that the spirit of wisdom may save us from all false choices, and that in your light we may see light, and in your straight path may not stumble. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. Public comments are next on the agenda. We have no speakers. Next up is discussion items. Superintendent and district goals for 2025-2026. Dr. Rapp.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. So tonight we're going to go through our goal-setting presentation, and Dr. Miller and Dr. Fitzhugh will help me with pieces. And then, of course, if we have any questions about the scorecard and targets, we've got leadership team here to help answer those questions as well. So first, let's just touch base on what all is in the presentation for tonight. We've got a reminder about our local readiness data, an overview of how we collect our own readiness data that we report on in the scorecard. Then a discussion about the scorecard. We'll go over lessons that we've learned from year 2 implementation of our long-range plan, our proposed changes and revisions to our scorecard targets, our draft of our DIP strategies that will help support our scorecard targets, and then touch base on the superintendent goals, which make up section 1 of my 2025 evaluation, and then close with a timeline forecasting our next steps with the long-range plan, and then open it up for discussion and feedback with the board. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Fitzhugh.
Okay, so probably a little over 5 years ago, we embarked on defining our own readiness standards. As we started watching the state create them, we realized that the readiness standards for college, career, and military that TEA was defining were a little bit restrictive, and so we joined with a group called Redefining Ready through AASA, and it was all very much research-based of how do students demonstrate that they are ready for that next step. They also then built the work backwards to say, as a middle school student, what does it mean to be ready for high school? And so we based our local standards on this research and this work. I was on, but maybe I'm not. There we go. Okay, so our high school standards and our high school criteria, and what I've done is some of our criteria do overlap with TEA's criteria, and so those are kind of in yellow there on the screen. But our college-ready criteria include a GPA of 2.7 or higher, and then meeting 2 additional criteria, either an AP test or taking an AP course, SAT, ACT, TSI, honors courses, especially for our 9th and 10th graders, because that's the pathway to be to an AP or a dual credit course, college prep courses, dual credit, and then Algebra 2, because that is kind of the readiness math that a lot of those college readiness tests utilize and to see if students are ready. For career ready at high school, we look at students' discipline. We look to see if they have a 4-year plan, attendance, engagement, and extracurricular activities, and then we also look at CTE, course completion, and then IBC, or certification completion. The big difference with ours versus TEA is that TEA requires you to complete a sequence of courses and a certification all together, we allow for exploration to count as well, because we feel like that informs you of your next steps as much as completing a full pathway does. When it comes to middle school, the indicators we look at are attendance, grades, passing your core courses, discipline, and then either being in advanced courses, because that has you on the path to remain in advanced courses. We utilize the PSAT 8, and then we look to see if you're engaged in an extracurricular activity as well as performing arts. And then the last area, elementary school, currently what we're monitoring is attendance and then reading, if students are on grade level for reading or if they are progressing and showing growth so that they will eventually be on grade level.
Dr. Fitzhugh put this chart together, and I appreciate her work on that. You know, board, as I was reflecting, getting ready for this goal-setting conversation, you think about the year at a glance that we have. We really have landed in a very robust reporting schedule. And so when you look from August to June, these are all the annual reports now that come before you as a board. So you see our district improvement plan, you see our CTE update, external PE, student services, GT, communities and schools, North Texas, child nutrition. You're going to hear fine arts and athletics this month in May, which is going to be great. So I'm just really proud of not only are we regularly reporting on our long-range plan and our district improvement plan, but we're reporting on our most significant programs in the school district.
Okay, so some lessons learned. We celebrate the completion of year 2 of our long-range plan. So that has brought us benefits of this year of people being familiar with the process, the language. So we've learned a lot from that, and have also, it's allowed us to go deeper in the conversations around the common language and things that we're going to measure. So those conversations are, as you know, regularly done, and so we've been able to have more collaboration, as well as seeing things that, you know, a couple different departments might be doing but weren't aware of that, and so we've now been able to streamline and collaborate together better on that and on our approach, which has also strengthened our strategies. We actually kind of revamped how we developed our strategies for the ones you'll see we drafted for next year, because of people being familiar with the process and the overlap that we've been able to hear. So that's been effective. Campuses it has really impacted the collaboration on the campuses, and everybody knows what it is that's important to us and what we're measuring, and so those conversations are much more intentional. And then when we do scorecard check-ins, the conversation we have around the data and how we're using the data is different than what we were able to do in year 1. We also learned that a lot has happened since thank goodness this is only a 3-year plan, because a lot has happened since when this was developed in 23-24, and the situation we're in right now with the legislation and funding, some of the things we're reflecting on and looking at in our long-range plan may or may not even be relevant right now in the situation we're in, and so that's something we've been processing throughout this year too that we've learned.
So board, in your folders is one of the handouts is a printout of the scorecard. Of course, we keep the scorecard and our long-range plan. We keep all of those documents for our community on the internet. But I wanted to highlight just a few things for this evening. So if you flip past our performance objectives, that first page broken up by cornerstone, you see the scorecard there. The areas highlighted in yellow are the areas that we agreed on last year, or when we first launched the long-range plan. That would be in section 1 of my evaluation. So I'll use 1.1 there, curricular adjustments based on recommendations. This is an example of one where we agreed to some things are measured in a quantitative data, and some things are measured in what number of recommendations are we going to get done in a school year. Our target was 5 recommendations for this school year. We're at 3 out of 5, as you see on the screen. and I've written about that in my evaluation as well. And this is a great example when Dr. Miller says, good thing we didn't make this a 5-year plan, because there are things changing even with curriculum from the state. You think about what we're facing with instructional materials and some changes there. We've seen regular instructional material cycles go away, and that's impacting how we're developing curriculum and responding to curriculum. You see on 256 on the screen, so on your scorecard, if you flip over to the second page to 256, our target was to get 2 recommendations done, or 2 recommendations for 24-25. We actually got 4 recommendations done on that one. So there's a few of these where we've exceeded the number of recommendations we thought we were going to get done, and then there's a few where we're having to adjust and we didn't get quite as many done as we thought we would. And then the next thing that you'll see, we've noted some changes as we think about the 25-26 targets. So on your scorecard, I'm going to take you back again to the student learning section, to section 1. On 113 and 114, and of course you're going to hear more about the reading and math assessment at the May 5th work session, but we now have setting those targets as TBD, because we're going to need to administer the first administration of the new assessment if you all approve what we bring forward in May. And once we get that BOY, then we'll set those targets and bring that data back to you. The other thing I would mention on 113 and 114, since that's part of my evaluation, and you see this printed out at the very back of your scorecard on page 4, that's an example where we not only have an end-of-year target, but we also have middle-of-year targets, because my evaluation has to be done before the end-of-year administration on these reading and math and CCMR assessments. So the middle-of-year targets are what we look to accomplish by the time I report on y'all to my evaluation. But those middle-of-year targets are not reflected in the scorecard itself. The scorecard itself is reflective of the end-of-year targets. You'll notice if you flip back to your second page, go back to 113, that is highlighted in blue. So if you were on the internet, that would be an active link. So any community member can see what our targets are by student group on that reading goal. 121, which is readiness dashboard for elementary. Of course, we'll adjust those targets as well based on how our new assessment turns out too. On 514 for community engagement, we've got a change on that one on the scorecard. So if you'll flip on over to page 3, 514, as we changed our mass communication system, we're just having to change how we report out on this data. So we're reporting out on click rates rather than open rates. And so that's why you see it go from 20% to 2.3 and then 2.3. So that's a change there. All right, so that's a few things about the scorecard, how it's formatted, a couple of things that will be changes moving forward. Now, the other thing you have in your folder is a draft of the district improvement plan. Of course, the font on here ended up a little smaller. I have to own that. It's bigger on the computer. But what we did as a leadership team is we take a look at the scorecard, of course, and we talk about what are the strategies that are going to continue to help us achieve those scorecard targets. So this, I'll emphasize, of course, draft, because it's still going to go through some cleanup and revision. Remember, we don't bring the DIP for approval until later. So in goal 1 of the strategies I want you to notice right off the bat on your first page of the DIP is designing and delivering professional learning modules for the One Vision framework and providing continued support for teachers and leaders. You're going to see the One Vision framework referenced a lot this year for the DIP, both from Adrian Gall's team and the work they're doing on instruction, along with Jeff's team and the work they're doing on positive behavior supports in the learning environment, to Ms. Litchfield's team with special ed and the work they're doing with Safe and Civil School and that kind of thing. So I want you to know we've got a lot of work happening there to build capacity and build up our teacher leaders around common language when it comes to what we expect to see in our classrooms. And I think that work is going to be really, really good. On your second page of the DIP, one item I wanted to highlight for you under 1.2 is the very first bullet, developing four-year plans with eighth graders prior to entering high school. As we continue to really work on CCMR, one of the things that I do with every leadership team member and their leaders is I bring them in to come have a department check-in with me. We check in on these strategies, we check in on their scorecard targets, and they too are part of saying, here's really where I think we need to take a next important step, and this was one that we heard of both from learning and teaching and from guidance and counseling. And then on page 2, under 2.2, you're going to see there the first bullet. You're just going to notice the one vision framework, but this time it's the connection to the positive learning environment piece. Under 2.3, you're going to notice on the third bullet, one of our strategies is about conducting an Attendance Matters campaign. We're really proud of the attendance rate we have at 95%, but we know even a 0.5 percentage point makes a big funding difference for our district. And of course, one of our budget items is to reduce from 10 parent notes to 5. So as we support our parents through that, but communications is going to be working to develop materials to help underscore the importance of attending school. And then at the bottom, under 2.4 on page 2, one of the bullets you see there is implement our arms screener program. As we know, we are looking to implement our weapons detection at the high school level first. Page 3, under 2.5, again, you're going to see the One Vision framework and the work happening there on supporting campuses. And then under 3.1, the very first bullet, you're going to see maximize opportunities for revenue and seek additional revenue options as we continue to not know what is going to happen with the legislature. On 3.2, you see continue unwrapped videos to inform and communicate our message. On 3.3, you see follow direction provided by the board committee regarding program evaluation and budget savings opportunities as we walk through this budget reduction path together. Also under 3.3, but towards the bottom of that section, you see expand system efficiency, optimizing our brand new ERP, looking for ways that we can be more efficient and eliminate redundancies, and move to Q for our student information system. Of course, we brought that before you about accelerating the transition from our current version of Skyward to the new one. That is going to be a big change for everybody. We're looking to roll that out in summer of 26, which means this school year will be very intensive on converting and training parents, teachers, everybody on how to access the new version of Skyward. Under 3.4, you see the second to last bullet is about prioritizing learning and implementing year-long professional learning plan to support while building capacity in teacher leaders. We know as we've had to reduce positions in central office, and y'all have talked about that a lot, we think about the learning and teaching team and how do we magnify the people that are still in that department. So that's where the One Vision framework becomes so important to train everybody on that common language. That will start at Inspire with really training the One Vision leaders from the campuses to help the principals and APs implement that vision framework and build capacity in them. And then just a couple more of note on section 4.1 under resource stewardship. The very last bullet came out of several different department check-ins about getting information regarding our current staff who are getting their master's degree and helping them and support and guide them on next steps in their employee journey. We've not done that, and one of the questions you all asked me in my formative was, succession planning and building our pipeline. And part of building our pipeline is figuring out who all is out there that is already working on their advanced degrees and supporting them. And then I already mentioned, but in 4.3, about the middle of the way down, you'll see the bullet that's role-based training with the rollout of the new SIS. And again, that rollout will be for summer of 2026. And then finally, under community engagement, you see under section 5.1, the very last bullet is about addressing competition. One of the things we've been polling our parents on is why do they choose Lewisville ISD? And how do we ensure we're clear about that and that we know that we are delivering well on why people are choosing us and what makes us different from our competition? And that is going to be a big theme as we go into this next school year with our leaders. And then on 5.2, the third bullet I was going to highlight, share how past feedback influenced decisions. One of the things we're really trying to be sure that we share in our communications with staff is here's how their survey input influenced something we're doing, or here's how something they said on the pulse check influenced a change that we're making, or if we're having to make a change, just being sure that we're communicating about why. Y'all remember, and I talked about this in my evaluation this year, we did that November 5th video where everybody is like, stop, drop, and watch, a common message around some things, and we really got good feedback out of that. So continuing to think about how to tell people your feedback matters. We may not get to act on it all the time, but it does matter. So that's just a quick overview, and of course we'll be bringing the DIP back to you several times before it's time for approval. So overall, the superintendent goals would be section 1 of my evaluation for 2025, those goals that are highlighted in yellow on the scorecard. There's 15 of them. We're not recommending to change and add to those. We're recommending to maintain those 15 items in section 1 of my evaluation. But as you all know, and you're in the process of scoring my summative as we speak, I really report to you all in my entire evaluation instrument about the work with the scorecard. And so everything that's not in section 1, I give highlights about in section 2. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Miller to close it up.
Okay, so a reminder of the timeline for all of this. In June, y'all will adopt the goals for a superintendent and approve those few adjustments that we talked about, the measures in student learning and the community engagement. Then in July, we bring everyone together at Inspire with some department leaders and really finalize the strategies that are in the draft and which ones are we going to commit to moving forward on. And then we will start that discussion with y'all in August, and then you finally, they come for approval in September. Starting in July through September, campuses are working on their campus improvement plans, and so by the end of September, they will have those plans all finalized, aligned with the DIP. And then, because this will be our third year of implementation of the long-range plan, which was a 3-year plan, in January, we will reconvene to kind of recalibrate that long-range plan. So forecasting that of really doing some time, a lot has changed in 3 years, even though it's just a short time span, a lot has changed. So really reviewing to ensure that there is alignment, and then refining anything that it's now reality that wasn't then, and then what are the opportunities that we want to highlight moving forward, bringing the long-range plan committee back together, getting new input to make sure that we consider, and then refining that, whether we refine or rewrite based on the input that we get, and then seeking approval at the end of next year so then we can just launch into the planning like this for the following year.
And with that, we'll turn over to y'all for discussion.
Any comments, questions? Dr. Barker?
Thank you, Madam President. I have a few. So I wanted to note, first of all, you were talking about the strategies on 1.2, and I just did a quick count. 80% of those are in some way tied to CCMR. And so I think that that's just a really, it's been a clear focus throughout the year when we've been reports on various, from counselors, from the CTE department, it's just been clear that that's a strong focus, and it's here in the DIP too. And so I really appreciate that. I'm excited for when it will finally hit our accountability because it's such a lagging indicator, but I want to applaud that. I also got some really strong feedback, really strong positive feedback about the LISD Chronicles that are on social media right now. And so that that really lives up to some of the strategies that you were mentioning around the community engagement. So people are loving that, by the way. You and I talked recently, Dr. Rapp, about 3.1 and being revenue seeking, and I was just reminded about early on in my tenure as a board member. It seems so long ago. It wasn't that long ago. But one of the things that I had mentioned was we're always blaming the legislature. And, like, I get it, right? Like, there's a lot to blame them for. I'm not saying we shouldn't blame them. But it felt like every time we were coming to a decision, it was like, well, it's because of the legislature. Well, it's because of the legislature. So I think it's really important that we take the opportunity where we can to find our own path where we don't have to keep blaming the legislature. So I'm really excited to see how that develops. It's really, really exciting for me. I'm also really excited about the Master's Ed and building the pipeline. That's really, really great. So now comes my really only question. All those were comments. There's some, in 3.4, there's some general strategies, but I'm curious if there are any specific strategies around staff paperwork.
Yeah, so one of the things that we touch base on with the departments, like MTSS right now has been one of the big areas around streamlining. So I'll let Ms. Litchfield, if you want to share more too about the streamlining aspects. We definitely have started first with that paperwork burden that happens there, and we continue to talk about, are there ways to streamline when it comes to not only MTSS and special ed, but ELL, those areas that require a lot of documentation?
Yes, so the best laid plans, right? So last year we thought we had a plan and we were moving MTSS into Success Ed and thought it was going to be beautiful. It has not been beautiful. It has increased paperwork a little bit, is kind of what we've heard, which was not our intention at all. So Dr. Clark has been meeting, or Ms. Clark has been meeting with a small team of people from campuses to really streamline it and to make the process better. So we are still working on that, but we are getting feedback and trying to streamline those forms so that they are able to be utilized in a more friendly manner at this time. So because the feedback we were getting was that it was just taking them longer, even though they were able to access everything in there, it was just taking a lot of time.
The other target audience for streamlining paperwork burden outside of our teachers is our assistant principals. And so that's one of the things that when Jeff's team is in, we talk about when it comes to discipline and other things, how do we continue to help them? I know, of course, the school chiefs live in that land of trying to figure out how do we minimize the paperwork burden for them. But those are really our two big audiences right now.
Dr. Bonner?
Thank you, Ms. President. Dr. Barger has dislodged a question from my brain, that being we're focusing on doing some things on MTSS, but are there other ancillary things that we've abandoned to reduce paperwork and program, right, as far as our budget cuts or just anything else? So is there any input there? And if we have to do it later, that's fine. But you know, that's the piece to me that's an opportunity is what are we abandoning and quit doing to save time?
You know, one of the things that we haven't done, but we probably should do is include that as a quick poll to staff and touch base back with them on what's creating paperwork burden. We, a few years ago, it was kind of an informal survey, Sarah, that we did of the attendance clerks to try to figure out, like, where all are they having some issues that clog up their schedule. So it probably, to get a bigger picture of just what's adding to that paperwork burden, it would be a quick way to ask them that.
I always like to think about, you know, what the end user of all this is going to be. If we work these forms and they matriculate down to this department or this office, let's quit doing them and see what happens. Seriously, let's see if the ship stops sailing, and if it doesn't, let's stop. So I really encourage that because I do think it can be a great burden sometimes that we just build and build and build. So I appreciate, Stacey, asking that question.
Dr. Barker?
It'll be real quick. I just wanted to say, Dr. Bonner, I'm so glad that you said that, because one of my favorite words when we're talking about things like this is strategic abandonment.
Dr. Taylor?
Just a quick comment on I think it was resource stewardship. I too agree that we should be doing more, especially when it comes to seeking other revenue sources. I think we're starting to think like that as a board, so happy to see that in the district plan. Also, with that being said, and I lost my train of thought. How did I just lose my train of thought? Well, you know what? I might have to come back to it. I had something that I was thinking there. Oh, I know what it was. I was saying, I always say we don't sell widgets, but I like seeing this because that means we're getting close to selling widgets. So anyway.
Anybody else? Ms. Sells?
I concur with everything that everybody was said, and that's some of my questions that I'd written down. The only thing that I did want to know is, with the long-range plan committee being reconvened, can you make sure that we're aware of who those committee members are?
Ms. Alcatab?
Pretty much in line with what all of my fellow colleagues have said as well. The MTSS paperwork was a question that I had. That's something I'm getting a lot of feedback on, that it does take up so much extra time to track. So I'm glad that we are targeting that. And then I'm glad that we are also building that pipeline. I know that that's something that we've talked a lot about, just to make sure that we are filling that line behind. And then as far as the long-range plan, similar thinking as well, with that committee being convened. Just curious, are we going to invite some of the former committee members in, or is it going to be brand new, same? How is it? What are you thinking about structure?
I mean, nothing has been confirmed, so of course, any suggestions, please. But initially, the thought was absolutely those who want to reconvene that were on the old committee, and then just based on new realities, who were people that we might not have included then that we would want to include now.
All right, I've got a few. So how many of our CTE courses currently lack an IBC?
Yes, I appreciate Jason Cooper and Adrian helping track that down as well. 45 of our CTE courses have an IBC. We have over 250 CTE courses overall. Every program of study has an IBC. So we only have esports and interior design that are in programs of studies without one. They're not really their own program of study even by themselves, but 45 of those courses have an IBC. And the struggle, you know, and it's interesting because I was reading Dr. Fitzhugh's annotated Senate Bill 1962, and I'm going to send that to y'all with my update this week. You'll enjoy that. She did a good job of marking that thing up because there's quite a bit of authority to the commissioner on a lot of things, as we've talked about, but IBCs and CCMR is definitely in there. And as those things keep changing, that's going to make this a constantly moving target. I don't know that their intention is to have an IBC for every course, but what's sad is that some of our courses that have certification exams don't count as IBCs. So, you know, that's unfortunate too. One of the things that Senate Bill 1962 has in it, it's got a list of an advisory council that TEA should put together specifically around industry-based certifications, and TEA is listed inside the council. And to me, your advisory council should be the other groups, like they should be advising the agency, your industry-based partners. So anyway, this is an interesting conversation for sure around IBCs and somewhat of a moving target.
And I know we will have a new assessment, but are we going to keep the same date range for the beginning of year and middle of year assessments going forward?
Go ahead, Sarah. Yeah, sorry.
Depending on what instrument is selected. Some of them have some different opportunities to select right now. We currently have to do within a specific month, so we might be able to move by a week or two to give us a little more flexibility, but we anticipate keeping the same cadence.
And for the community engagement, do you have any stats on your click rate from your last communication? I mean, I know you chose what an industry standard was. I'm curious what your click rate was for your last communication, if you know what that is.
April's was 2.2%, so just almost at that 2.3 mark.
Okay.
And one of the things, I appreciate about communications, they really try to give me so I can give y'all updates in all my rundowns every single month at the board meeting. But we were just pretty much right about there, yeah.
And then I think I ask this every year because I forget from year to year, which is that 2.7 GPA that we use, is that weighted or unweighted?
We use the weighted GPA.
Okay. All right. I concur with my fellow colleagues on some of these things, and I greatly agree with Dr. Bonner. It seems like in education we're at the buffet line, and we just keep adding and adding and adding, and we never go back and actually edit our plates. And I do think it would be a good pulse check, quite frankly, not just with teachers, but in every department, to ask them, if you could lose one thing, what would it be? And if we can, I'm with Dr. Bonner. Let's try losing it. If the ship leans too far to the right, we can correct it. We don't have to run aground. But I wholeheartedly agree with that, because I do think that there are times that we hold on to things for no reason that we don't know why. That lovely story of why you cut the ends off of the ham, and someone says it's just because what you do, and you find out it's because 100 years ago the oven was smaller, and that's why they did it. So I think we need to certainly look at some things of that nature, of what we can get rid of. I would say that's a resource stewardship. It's about time. You're not getting back any more of it. We're not making more of it. We're just using it. Those are my thoughts. So with that, have anything you want to add? You're good. You're good. Next up, we have action items to consider approval of the Transportation Logistics Plan. Dr. Rao.
Thank you, Madam President. I do have a brief presentation to present to y'all, but first and foremost, I want to introduce Dana Chandler, who's our newly hired Director of Transportation. Jeff Kosh has never been so happy. I know. Obviously, with any questions at the end, they'll all help with answer questions, but I'm just going to go through a couple of high points about the direction we're headed in here. Just some background information. We have utilized contract service providers for bus services for more than 30 years. So our contract providers have included Durham, First Student, and who we currently have with just Texas Central. That contract expires July 30th. Due to issues that we've been experiencing, and you all heard a presentation from Texas Central in February as we were trying to work through service issues, we issued a request for proposals in February of 25, and we also ultimately were able to start interviewing candidates for consideration of taking transportation in-house. Of course, you all know that we purchased the fleet of our buses, so we own the 286 buses, which ultimately gives us a lot more flexibility as we think about what direction do we go moving forward. The fiscal year 25 budget consists of approximately $16 million for bus transportation service. And of course, we only get $3.5 million from the state for bus service. I should have put that on this slide too. To continue with a contract provider, we figured that it was going to require us to increase the budget somewhere between $3 to $5 million. And given that we've not been able to provide a raise for staff, and you need $3.7 million for a 1% of the midpoint raise, we just could not see recommending to you all an approach that would cause us to have to take that much money and put it into transportation. So our recommendation is to bring our transportation services in-house. and that by doing so, we could mitigate some cost increases. We'll still have to increase the budget a little bit to do that. We're estimating about $2 million. And again, because we own our own bus fleet, that's going to help make our transition smoother. And we, of course, are so proud to have found Dana out of the interview process, and we're just really confident in the direction that she's going to take us as we implement this. So we would basically take over services when our contract ends. Texas Central would still be the one providing bus service for our summer programs, and we're working with them on that right now. But basically, we have to create an entire transportation department to take over these services. So Dana, we met today about her staffing recommendations and the positions that would be needed to do this. And so it's recommended that we establish this transportation department, and beginning tomorrow that we start posting those jobs on our job board along with all of our relevant job boards, and Melissa Cobb, of course, in her department will help with that. It's also recommended that in starting our own department that we raise our bus driver pay to $23 per hour, and our starting bus driver pay to $23 per hour, and our starting pay for bus monitors to $15 per hour, which is another advantage of taking this in-house. We can raise that pay and still mitigate cost increases. So our next steps, Dana and Jeff would be back before you all at the May 5th work session to provide more information about this transition, along with hazardous bus routes, as it's time to bring those before you too. And truly, we would also provide an update in June, as we want to keep you all informed and our community informed about us making this transition. We would be bringing a budget amendment forward in June as well, as we'll have to spend a little bit in fiscal year 25 to get this started. And then we would communicate with all LISD employees. I have a communication ready to go out in the morning, because I don't want people to see all these jobs go on the job board and think, I thought we were reducing the budget. So I've drafted something to go out to everybody to say, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it. Dana is ready to start hosting in-person informational meetings on May 1st and 2nd for all of our prospective employees who'd like to learn more, and that's why we're bringing the starting pay before you tonight for action. And then we would communicate with parents in my May newsletter about we're going in a different direction. And where it's going to be a transition, they're going to have to be patient with us, but we believe in the long term that this will pay benefits, not only in the budget that it will help us not have to spend, but also in quality of service to our families. So with that, we have before you recommending the approval of establishing that transportation department and doing what we need to do to begin to oversee logistics for the 25-26 school year.
All right, with that, can I get a motion? Ms. Lasan.
I move that the board approve the establishment of a transportation department within Lewisville ISD to oversee and run bus transportation logistics beginning with the 2025-26 school year as recommended by administration.
Second. Dr. Taylor. Discussion. Anybody have anything? Dr. Bonner.
Well, first off, welcome, Ms. Chandler. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm curious, and it's probably too soon to tell, but I'm curious about opportunities for greater efficiency, routes, just the whole nine. And this is not meant to disparage anyone. It may sound like it is, but it's not. I just wonder if we can't keep a closer eye on that, because it's ours, right? And pick up some economies of scale through the department being a part of the district. So that's one. And then Dr. Taylor's disease has affected me now. I can't remember the second piece. There was a second piece, but
was it management of the White Fleet? That's always something.
No, it wasn't. But that's always a good guess. I'll defer and maybe even just pass on by because I've forgotten. Thank you.
Ms. Sells.
Can you remind me about, and maybe we haven't gone this far yet, but will the benefits for those drivers change? Anything that they have the opportunity through Texas Central, will we be providing the same opportunities? And wasn't there some bonus extra things if they brought people on board with them, or was that the one before? Was that Central that was trying that at one point?
I don't know the answer on if they had a recruiting type bonus.
Yeah, it was like a
We've been talking about, one of the advantages for them to be employed by us is you get to go into the teacher retirement system.
And that was my other question.
We are really working through the frequency of pay because that's, Texas Central pays them weekly now. And then we're also working through some things because in the summer they often draw unemployment. And so that's a little bit different. And so there's some things there to work through, but some definite benefits to be a Lewisville ISD employee. I think people will be excited about that.
And I will say that I'm excited because I've talked to several drivers, and I will tell you that most of them do not feel appreciated. And I hope that that we actually welcome and extend them as a part of our family. And so that was just really important to me. And I wanted to make sure, but I do say bringing in the house their TRS. So, yeah, so I'm happy to see that. I think that's going to give them some opportunity, and maybe even somebody was employed before in a school district. This is an opportunity to increase that. So, sounds great. Thank you.
Dr. Taylor?
I just want to say that I'm excited about this because I may hear it a little bit more than most people about the complaints about the buses because I'm so close to quite a few of it, a lot of it, since, again, in the Lewisville feeder pattern, kids are always on buses between multiple schools. But I'm excited about it. Welcome, Ms. Chandler. And my question was related to, I'm always thinking sort of long-term, the worst scenario, if you will. I know the plan is to be ready to go, it sounds like, when school starts back. Is there a contingency plan in place in case that doesn't happen, or do we feel comfortable that it will, I guess? And we may not know that yet, but maybe something to bring back as we keep having discussions. And then also with what Ms. Sells mentioned about appreciating the employees. I saw multiple posts in a community group about not being recognized for Bus Driver Appreciation Day. So I do want to make sure that we appreciate them, if that makes sense, because I heard a lot of complaints.
So a couple of things, I think one of the things we really appreciated in Dana's interview that she brought to the table was talking about what she would do to appreciate the drivers more frequently. Obviously, we can do things at the district level a few times from our perspective, but really it's most imperative that the department that they're interacting with every single day is helping them to feel appreciated. So she had great ideas, and I'm looking forward to seeing those come to fruition. As far as contingency goes, one of the reasons why we really want to bring back an update, and they'll talk a little bit more about some of this on Monday, May 5th, but also to you all in June, is just to keep you posted on what are we thinking in terms of routing and efficiencies, and how's the transition going. I would say to you that Dana's done a great job. She was talking to me about this today because I really would prefer to change softwares immediately. That's not advisable, and I appreciate when people say that's nice, but that's probably not the best plan. Because at the end of the day, in terms, that would be hard to get. We don't have enough runway for that. So this is where our families are going to have to be a little bit patient with us. But what we do know, and she's already been talking to the routing, school bus logistics, and she can talk a little bit about this on Monday night, is that, yes, there are opportunities for efficiency. There are things we could be doing with the current software and even with the current app that will be better for families. But in the long term, we will propose an upgrade to software and a different approach. We just don't have the runway, and so that is helping us to make it through this transition, if that makes sense, and not need a other type of contingency plan. Yeah.
Ms. Lasson?
So when Ms. Sells was talking about, you started talking about how the bus drivers now are being paid weekly. Did that happen too with our subs? Weren't our subs being paid weekly? So will that help, or have y'all figured that out for them yet? Are you changing it? Sorry if I'm getting off track, but the two, hey, we've got two big groups now that need to be paid weekly, so hopefully that can get, I'm just saying things as Ms. Cobb is walking up here.
It's all good.
Okay.
So we're working through all of those logistics right now. So we're in the middle of it all, but we do have the opportunity to pay weekly or biweekly or bi-monthly. So we're working through that with the payroll department, just so it won't be as big of a leap from the ESS transition to LISD. But we are looking at those and the pros and cons and figuring out if we have the manpower to do both.
Okay, gotcha. Because, gosh, that's, we're doing big things here, bringing the subs back in and bringing the bus driver, at least with the subs, we've had them, within the past, this has been, 3 years that we've had ESS or 2?
3.
3. So at least that's a recent history. But that's a big undertaking for you guys and staff in general. So thank you guys for all of that. But
We are swinging for the fences.
Heck yeah.
We're going to
Absolutely.
convert the student information system, take transportation in-house, take subs back in-house.
Yes.
It's just all of it. So
Because we're doing
the
it
ERP.
we're doing it the LISD way. We got this,
That's right.
Okay, and then the other thing, which I don't think, you can stay here for a second, but because maybe you can reiterate this. I guess one thing I think the public to know, because I'm sure, this is going to hit social media and people are going to go, what's going to happen to the bus drivers? I love my bus driver. So as long as they're good bus drivers and they do what they're good employees, we want them and we need them, right? And you're over there nodding your head, so.
Absolutely. I think there's been some recruitment that's already happened. There's been some communication. So we are, like Dr. Rapp said, we are prepared already. In fact, I was over there texting my people saying, I need these posted in the morning. So, and they're on it. They're like, we've got it. I'm getting here early. So they are ready. So they have, I know that Mr. Koch's team has already been out there to share the transition a little bit. And so they're ready and prepared, and they had a good number of folks that are ready to come back to us.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Well, I think this is a perfect opportunity as we build our new transportation center as well. I think that kind of, if you will, all LISD stars are aligning. And I think that we will LISD way this is what we always do. So I look forward to welcoming more members into the LISD family. And I ask for parents to have some grace August and September as we take this on. It's not that we can't walk and chew gum at the same time, but I do think this is a really heavy lift. You said 30 years. I just never knew LISD had buses in-house. That's honest. I never knew that we did. So I'm excited to see what we can do and how we can make it more efficient, and also make sure that all of our new team members feel the LISD love that we like to share with all of our employees in every single department across the district. So with that, I will ask for the vote. All those in favor? That vote carries 7-0. And with that, if there is no further business, the meeting is adjourned, and the time is 7:53 p.m. Have a pleasant evening.